Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Imagine If. For this one, I am giving a shout out to the one that gave me the idea on this Imagine If story. This goes to SR Striker 6420. Thank you so much for giving me some ideas for this Imagine If episode. So what this commenter wanted me to make was a possibility in the Sam Raimi universe of the Green Goblin never dying, never suffering his fate. More specifically, imagine if Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, didn't die in Spider-Man 2002. How would the rest of the timeline go if fate decided to take its course later instead of now? Sit back, relax, and let us explore this tale. The story will begin when Spider-Man is beaten to the ground by the Green Goblin. Green Goblin tells Spider-Man that he has spun his last web and he should have accepted his offer. He could have given him power, but he used it like a fool. Green Goblin continued to say that when he kills him here right now, he's going to kill everyone that he ever loved, including MJ. Spider-Man looked up at Goblin, feeling such a burn in his heart, a burn of getting his revenge, justice for killing all those innocent people that Green Goblin committed, and nearly killing J. Jonah Jameson, his Aunt May, and Mary Jane. Green Goblin pulls out his staff that summons out 3 long blades. "See you in hell, Peter Parker," Green Goblin says as he's going in for the kill. With a quick instinct, Spider-Man grabs onto the blades in time, escaping death, and he pushes Green Goblin back to a brick wall. As Green Goblin is trying to get up, Spider-Man shoots webs at him non-stop, making him glued to the wall with his webbing, making Green Goblin unable to move. It was a goblin stuck in the spider's web. Spider-Man went to Goblin and began to strike him in the face right and left. While punching Green Goblin tells him to stop. "Peter, stop. It's me," Green Goblin says to Spider-Man. Spider-Man stopped the punching and tore off Green Goblin's mask, seeing that it was Norman Osborn. Spider-Man asked Norman while in tears why he did this. Norman told him that this was Green Goblin's doing. He didn't have a choice. Spider-Man told Norman that he did have a choice, and he chose life as a murderer, a villain. Norman tried to do the glider trick in the original timeline, but since he was covered in web lining, he wasn't able to. He was stuck. Norman tried to convince Peter all he could, but Spider-Man was not having it. Spider-Man knocked Norman out, shutting him up. He just stood there, thinking about how he is going to explain this to Harry, about his own father being the Green Goblin all along. How would the whole city of New York take this in? Spider-Man knew that Norman had to face charges, no matter who or how many people hate the Osborns. Spider-Man went to a nearby telephone and called the police, saying to pick up Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. When the police arrived, Spider-Man left. The next morning, the news was out about Norman Osborn being the Green Goblin and how he killed the board members of Oscorp, killing all of Quest Aerospace and nearly killing innocents. Harry couldn't believe all this. He now knew why Norman never had time for him. He just wanted to have revenge, have things his way. Not only did Harry lose his father, but also MJ. She left him, saying that she can't be with someone that had a father that tried to kill her or anyone. She went to the courts with Aunt May and all the others that were threatened by the Green Goblin, and they were able to send Norman Osborn to prison for the rest of his days. They put the Green Goblin's things into a secure room in the prison, where it would be impossible to unlock or get into. With Norman no longer there to lead Oscorp, Harry was given the role. The people started to hate not only Norman, but also just the Osborns in general. They called Harry a freak. just because he was Norman's son. Peter was hearing all of this go by, knowing that he has to be there for Harry. Harry is his best friend. Norman would at least want to know of a surety that Harry is comforted while all of this is changing at once. Peter came over to the Osborn residence and visited Harry to see how he was holding up. He went in and saw Harry sitting on a couch with his head down. Peter sat beside Harry and asked him how he is holding up. Harry doesn't say anything, but his looks definitely give Peter the answer. He was depressed. He was drinking. Peter put a hand on Harry's shoulder and said to Harry that even though his father is in prison, he could still visit him here and there. Harry looks at Peter and tells him that he has lost his father and now MJ. She's left him. Peter tells Harry that he is sorry to hear, but he shouldn't lose hope. But Harry snaps back at him, saying that it was all Spider-Man's fault. He put his father in prison. He took his loved one away from him. He made his family name be known as the worst. And for all this, Spider-Man is gonna pay. After Harry said that, he lashed out at Peter, attacking him. Peter tried to calm him down, but because of all the drinks he had, Harry's mind was somewhere else. Peter had no choice but to make a run for it. Peter got out of the Osborn residence and went into one of the alleyways. Harry's lost it. He knows he can't visit Harry now. Harry needs time to come back to his senses, see that he still has some things that are going to keep him moving on. Peter decided to get his mind off of things, and he decided to go to someone to talk to, someone that he could really use advice from, someone that he misses. Peter made his way to his Uncle Ben's grave. He tells his uncle that there is so much going on as Spider-Man and everything else around. He tells his uncle that it is a lot to take in, as Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin, Harry in a depressive and drunken state, and he hates him as Spider-Man. Peter didn't know how much worse this could get. While Peter was in deep thought, he heard someone ask him if she could join him. Peter turns to see in surprise that it was MJ. Peter said that she could and also asked her how she is doing. She tells him that she doesn't quite know because Harry's father tried to kill her. Peter tells MJ that Harry didn't know and he is not doing well. He explains to MJ how he visited Harry earlier and how Harry lashed out in his drunken state. MJ did indeed feel bad for Harry, but she really had no other choice. The two stood there in silence for about a minute or two. Peter broke the silence by saying that he has thought a lot on who to tell his secret to, and she is the only one he can trust for now. MJ turns her head to him, asking what secret. Peter tells her that the reason why he was late at the Thanksgiving dinner, the reason why he fought with Flash at school, and the other things that were going on over these past few months was because he had a responsibility, the weight of this city on his shoulders. He was Spider-Man. MJ was shocked from this, but also now understood the full picture of all that has happened. She put a hand on Peter's face, saying that she always did care for him, not only as a friend, but something more. She kisses Peter, and afterwards, Peter was speechless. "What's wrong, Peter?" MJ asks him. Peter says that he always loved her too, and he'll do whatever he can to make her happy, make her safe. The two embraced, with MJ thanking Peter for telling her about his secret identity, and his identity is kept safe. Peter felt very proud for finally getting the girl of his dreams, but also wondered how Harry would think of this. Meanwhile, at the prison in Norman's cell, Harry was talking with him. Norman tells Harry that he is sorry for not telling him sooner. Harry tells his father that he wants to help him, but he doesn't know how to do it. He knows that there is still good in him. With what Harry said, Norman's mind was switched, and the Green Goblin smiled. He tells Harry that there is something he could do, and if he does, he can tell him who Spider-Man really is. This caught Harry's attention, but he asks him if this is just a lie to get him out of prison. But Green Goblin tells Harry that he knows him. He knows he wants to get back at Spider-Man, and he will help him fulfill that wish if he gets him out. Harry, without thinking twice, agreed to it. As a few hours went by, Peter hears police sirens at the prison. He changed into his Spider-Man suit and went over there to see what was going on. When he arrived, he saw the police escorting the wounded while the firefighters put out the fire inside of the prison. Spider-Man asks the police what happened, and they tell him that a group of men with guns came in to break Norman Osborn out. Spider-Man couldn't believe this. Norman escaped with backup? Spider-Man swung away from the prison, thinking of going to Harry and telling him about what happened. But before he could do anything, he heard gunshots down below. He sees a group of mercenaries firing all over the place, just causing absolute chaos. Spider-Man quickly went straight into action and started to take them out. And as he was taking them out, more mercenaries came at him out of nowhere, firing at him more and more. Spider-Man sees this as a coordinated attack. Whoever freed Norman also hired these mercenaries. Spider-Man needed to know who specifically did this to end this as fast as he could. As Spider-Man is taking out this horde of mercenaries, MJ bumps into Harry while walking out. Harry tells MJ that if she comes with him peacefully and quietly, she will not be harmed. MJ sees that Harry has a gun. This was serious. MJ did as she was told and got in the car. The car drove its way to the Osborn residence. When Spider-Man took out all of the mercenaries, he decided to quickly go to Harry and make sure he was alright. When Spider-Man arrived at the balcony of the Osborn residence, he saw Harry standing there across from him, having MJ wrapped around in rope, in chains, being hostage. "Can't believe it was you all along, Pete," Harry said with a disappointment and angry expression on his face. Spider-Man told Harry to let MJ go, but Harry instead pulled out a gun, pointing it at MJ. Harry yelled at Spider-Man that he was his best friend, and he backstabbed him, making his life miserable by putting his father in jail. Spider-Man told Harry that he had no other choice but to put his father in jail. He was the Green Goblin. He killed innocents, and for that he must be served justice. Harry said with tears that the only justice that will be served was his death. Harry pointed his gun at Spider-Man and fired. Spider-Man dodged it. He shot a web out to the gun and pulled it away from Harry. Harry charged at Spider-Man to fight him, but Spider-Man webbed Harry up, leaving him on the ground. "If I had known earlier, then I would have come to you," Spider-Man said as he is making his way to MJ. Spider-Man went to her and freed her out of the rope and chains she was in. MJ has her arms around him in fear, telling him how Harry forced her into his car to come here, along with Norman Osborn entering into a hidden room that was located behind the mirror. Spider-Man looks into the living room and sees the mirror. He tells MJ to get to Aunt May and keep her safe. As MJ is leaving, wishing Spider-Man good luck, Spider-Man went to the mirror and smashed it open. He saw a dark room that was in there, and he went in. He went further into the room, and he saw Norman in a new green and purple suit working on his new glider. Spider-Man tells Norman that he should give up. Norman sees Spider-Man and says that he is too late, as this city is going to have a new ruler and a new beginning. Spider-Man tells him to surrender, but he gets surrounded by Norman's henchmen with their guns pointed at him. Norman tells Spider-Man that the Green Goblin failed to fulfill his goals, but now the Goblin King will go triumphantly. Norman puts his mask on, and he was giggling and cackling. He got onto his glider and yelled out at his men to kill Spider-Man. The henchman fired at Spider-Man, and he jumped into the air, landing onto the ceiling. As the henchmen are firing at Spider-Man more, Goblin King dashed out of the room, and he cackled with a pumpkin bomb in each hand. He sees Harry on the ground, and he says to him that he is so weak, just as Spider-Man ever was. "Time to put you out of your misery," Goblin King said to Harry. He threw the pumpkin bombs in his hands, and they blew up. Harry flies back, free from the webbing that was on him, but he was also extremely wounded, with cuts and bruises on his body. A gush of blood started to come out of the side of his head. Goblin King dashed into the city on his glider, and he knew exactly where to go first, which was Peter's loved ones. Spider-Man was able to get out of the room with parts of his suit scraped from the bullets. He saw Harry unconscious and went over to him to see if he was all right. He could see the puddle of blood that was coming out of his head. Harry needed to go to the hospital fast. As Spider-Man is picking Harry up, Harry wakes up and sees him. Harry said to Spider-Man that his father is still in there. He was very sorry for all of this. After Harry said those words, Harry's head fell onto Spider-Man's shoulder and was unconscious. Harry's heart was no longer beating. Peter had his mask off and felt guilty for what happened. Norman just killed his best friend. He wished he told Harry sooner about all of this. This was his fault. He had to act quickly before more of his family was killed off. Peter realized this, and he ran out of there as fast as he could, knowing that this was Goblin King's plan, to make him suffer even more for not joining him. Peter got his mask back on, and he swung as fast as he could to go to his Aunt May's. He just hopes that he wasn't too late. Spider-Man arrives at the Parker residence, and he sees the house on fire. Spider-Man swung through the window of his room and yelled out for Aunt May. He heard a scream and went after the noise, hearing that it sounded like Aunt May's. Spider-Man made it to the door of Aunt May's room. He kicked the door down and went in. He saw in horror his Aunt May's corpse lying on her bed. Spider-Man sees the Goblin King above her body and tells him in great sorrow and furiosity to just stop this carnage. Goblin King cackled loudly and said to him that now there was only one thing left to make him suffer, which was his death. Goblin King quickly dashed at Spider-Man and he fired hot lead at him. Spider-Man dodged it and was knocked back. Spider-Man fell back through the wall and fell to the first level of the burning building. When Spider-Man got up, Goblin King threw at him a couple of flying knife cutters, and they zoomed straight towards Spider-Man. Spider-Man dodged them, and Goblin King got off of his glider, ready to finish what he should have done a while ago. Goblin King went for the punch, but Spider-Man deflected it and gave Goblin King a couple of jabs to the ribs. The cutters came back around, and Spider-Man took them out with a punch. Spider-Man tells Goblin King that he has taken a lot of practice since their last brawl. Goblin King laughed and said, as he was holding a pumpkin bomb behind his back, that he is always too predictable. When Spider-Man charged at Goblin King activated the pumpkin bomb and threw it at Spider-Man. Spider-Man didn't see this coming, and the pumpkin bomb bursted out, sending Spider-Man back, wounded and bleeding. Goblin King cackled as Spider-Man was slowly getting up, feeling worn out and very hurt. Goblin King says, as he is getting back on his glider, that now the spider is going to go down with the burning building. Before Goblin King could get out of there, Spider-Man shot a web out at Goblin King and pulled him back. Spider-Man wrapped his arms around Goblin King's throat, saying that he killed Harry, he killed Aunt May, and there is no way he will allow him to kill Mary Jane or anyone else. Goblin King says that they'll kill them both if they stay in here any longer. Spider-Man says that it is a price he'll be willing to pay. Spider-Man is keeping Goblin King in check as he sees the building coming down on top of them. When the building collapsed, the firefighters arrived, as well as MJ. MJ was horrified and screamed for Peter, but he was nowhere to be found. As the flames were extinguished, the firefighters came out, pulling Spider-Man out of the rubble. MJ comes over to try and wake Peter while in tears. Peter's eyes weakly open, and he asked of the Goblin King, but MJ says that his body was never found, but his belongings were. Peter says that he failed. Aunt May is lost, Harry is lost, and so is Norman. MJ tells Peter that he didn't. He is a hero. He prevented all the other innocent people from further bloodshed, including hers. As MJ said those words, Peter thanks her and lowers his body, and he dies. MJ cries and begs for Peter to come back, but it is too late. Everyone around stood there in silence, respecting the sacrifice of their hero, Spider-Man. Off in the distance, Norman is in one of the alleyways, bleeding and feels himself broken. Norman finally feels free from the Goblin King, and he closes his eyes with relief. I am sorry for all that I have done, Norman says as he is leaving, deciding to never come back to New York. This is how this Imagine If is going to end. Thanks again, SR Striker 6420, for giving me the idea of showing this Imagine If to you and everyone else that was watching with us. If any of you want me to show you any new Imagine Ifs, let me know. Until the next Imagine If comes, my friends, farewell.